Welcome back to Pace Immigration, paceimmigration.com, talking once again with immigration lawyer Michael O'Rourke. Michael, good to see you.
Hey, Sean, how's it going?
Going very well. Talking today, spousal sponsorship to Canada or the USA, because you are a Canadian and U.S. immigration lawyer. Spousal sponsorship to Canada or the USA, but with a criminal record. We spend quite a bit of time talking about spousal sponsorship on both sides of the border and such, but we've actually never discussed this wrinkle. And sometimes we get stuff in the mailbag that's interesting or stuff we see online. And I saw this question here from the mailbag. I am a U.S. citizen. I want to move to Canada to be with the love of my life. Congratulations. But I have a DUI criminal record. So we're going to approach this from the Canadian side and the American side. We'll take this side first, a U.S. citizen with a simple DUI. We'll say it's not aggravated or something like that, okay, trying to go to Canada. Michael, take it away. And as always, I know it does depend.
Thanks, Sean. I was going to say it depends, but so the first it depends is, when did this DUI happen? Was the DUI before December of 2018, when Canada considered DUI just mere criminality, or did it happen after December 2018 when it became serious criminality under the Canadian Criminal Code? The Canada Criminal Code segregates crimes into criminality or serious criminality, and they have very different effects when looking to whether a crime is considered rehabilitated or deemed rehabilitated. So prior to 2018, a DUI would have been just criminality. After 10 years of the person completing all court-imposed sanctions, whether that's jail time, fines, probation, whatever, then after 10 years, the Canadian government would consider that DUI to have been deemed rehabilitated. However, if it's less than 10 years, or if the DUI happened after 2018, then we're in the serious criminality milieu, and we would have to apply for rehabilitation. Criminal rehabilitation is only allowed 5 years after all court-imposed sanctions have been completed. That is a prerequisite now to applying for spousal sponsorship. The intending American spouse has to get that rehabilitation complete before the Canadian spouse can file a spousal sponsorship. And a pardon in Canada or a expungement in the US does not really matter for immigration purposes.
Right. And we're talking about DUI here because it's a thing we see common. You know, we see that a lot. We have it, of course, in the question here. Maybe we should get it out of the way that this, the rules about spousal sponsorship with a criminal record, maybe go into that a little bit, because DUI or impaired driving in Canada, with the 10 years and stuff and the deemed rehabilitation, what about for something like theft or something like assault?
Sure. So it depends severity of the assault or the amount of the goods stolen for a theft. In Canada, we have theft over 5,000, theft under 5,000, and instead of misdemeanors and felonies, we have summary convictions and we have indictable convictions, and indictable offenses, summary offenses. So we'd have to know what the crime was, whether it was committed in Canada or whether it was committed abroad, and what the equivalent would be in Canada. So, for instance, something that would be the equivalent of a summary offense or like a misdemeanor in the U.S., where, say, it's mischief, that would be just a summary conviction. That would not require a criminal rehabilitation to engage in a spousal sponsorship. But anything that would be considered a indictable offense or a hybrid offense, one in Canada that could be either a summary or a indictable, depending on what the Crown decides to do with it, then we would have to seek rehabilitation before filing the sponsorship.
So one way or the other, if we're talking about, a criminal record, I mean, most of the time when people talk about a criminal record, they're not talking about something extremely lenient. They're talking about something a little more substantial. So there's probably, if you're a U.S. citizen that wants to come to Canada to be with a spouse or to start the spousal sponsorship process, it sounds like rehabilitation is somewhere in the works.
It could be. This is something that you're going to have an immigration lawyer take a look at and really understand the depth of the past criminality, what has been done in terms of rehabilitation. Is it just a time spent, or did, say, the DUI driver go to AA? We have to know all of the elements, what happened, and what has been done since. So this is a fairly in-depth undertaking to really figure this out, to determine whether the person is criminally inadmissible, and we have to cure that before the spousal sponsorship can take place.
Okay, so I've got here on the screen now, we have process and some other things. So we've kind of talked about the process. You're saying let's clear up this criminal inadmissibility, and then let's proceed with the spousal sponsorship. Can those go hand in hand?
They used to be able to, but not anymore.
Interesting. Okay. And I've got here, how long does it take? That's probably one of the first questions out of people's mouths. That, of course, does depend too, but we're talking what, anywhere from 1 to 3 years?
Usually about a year. So what you
Okay.
do is you file the criminal rehabilitation application with with the RCC. It's done at a consulate in the home country. So in the U.S., it'd either be New York or Los Angeles, and then you wait, and they might ask additional questions and stuff. There are, of course, filing fees that you have to pay for this. And at the end of it, once you do have that letter saying that you're rehabilitated, or you're considered rehabilitated from this criminality, then your spouse can file either common law or a spousal sponsorship.
Let's back up just a little bit. We need to make it clear then that if the crime was very recent, it makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah. If it's a recent crime, criminal rehabilitation is not available. It has to be 5 years after everything's been concluded. The intending spouse might be able to visit on a TRP, that's temporary resident permit, but the underlying criminal inadmissibility still is there, and that has to be removed before spousal sponsorship can happen in Canada.
Right. Drug convictions, we talk about a lot. Drug convictions are pretty much a no-go, yeah?
It depends. So have to really understand the severity of it. If it's mere possession and it wasn't, that charge wasn't wiped out, or if it doesn't exist in the Canada Criminal Code any longer, then that's probably not going to be an issue. But if it's trafficking of like a shipload's worth of methamphetamine, there might be a difference in scale. So again, we have to look at it and really understand what was charged, what the elements of the crime were that was the ultimate conviction resulting from, and what it is equivalent to under the Canadian criminal law.
Okay, and I've got here chances of success, but I mean, I think you've pretty much covered that. It depends on what the crimes were and the convictions, and if you've satisfied everything and all that. So we don't really need to go into that.
Well,
but
I do actually want to interrupt you there.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
That's probably good news.
I am interrupting. Was there actual rehabilitation? This is an important thing to know. What did the person who committed the crime do to get right afterwards? Did they attend AA? Did they undertake some community activities? What if there were injuries involved? Did they pay restitution? It's more than just, oh, it's 5 years, time to file. Like, we have to really know what happened. Have they reoffended since the original crime? are they a good upstanding citizen? All these things that the Canadian spouse would want to know, the Canadian government also wants to know.
That is interesting, isn't it? So if someone does, I mean, these are considerations, right? I mean, if you've been on the wrong side of the law, if you do a few things to try and get your life back together, make sure you have it documented. Make sure you have some people that can vouch for you, and maybe that can help you, especially when it comes to something like immigration. That's interesting.
Exactly.
Let's go Canada to the United States. It's similar but different.
It is different. So I will preface everything with an it depends, but the US isn't as what's the word I want to use? DUI is not such a barrier in the US as it is in Canada. The US has different strands of criminal inadmissibility. One, an aggravated felony would definitely create inadmissibility. So if, say, a DUI in Canada occurred and there was property or damage to another person, that would then raise the seriousness of that, and the U.S. would look at that as creating criminal inadmissibility. If the crime is not a DUI, but somehow involves a crime involving moral turpitude, something that is inherently evil, and with a definition like that, it can be all over the map. So things like shoplifting or fraud or crimes that have an evil intent, of base or vile intent, that can create an admissibility. Whether there was more than one charge, how long ago this was. So these are all considerations. And then, of course, the US is very, very much against drug crimes and trafficking and terrorism and things like that. So depending on what the crime is, there might be a different response. But in general, a simple DUI probably would not create inadmissibility, and there would be no need for a waiver for an immigrant visa for somebody who is coming to the US to join their spouse. If there is something that would create criminal inadmissibility, there's a form called I-601 that is a waiver for a potential green card recipient to have that criminality waived for the purposes of getting an immigrant visa and a green card. The baseline inquiry, though, is, does it cause extreme hardship to a U.S. citizen not having this person come to the U.S.? So just we're married and my spouse can't be with me is not extreme.
Right, that's interesting. I mean, what would some of the examples of extreme be? That you need, someone needs to help take care of the kids. I can't afford rent without this person in my life, something like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. We have to really look and see if this person isn't able to come to the U.S., how does the family suffer? What harm to American citizens is there if they don't grant this waiver?
Okay. How long does it take for the U.S. side of things? We said kind of a year to make sure we're all copacetic with the criminal inadmissibility in Canada. How about the United States?
Yeah, so the 601 waiver can take a year as well. So the U.S. sponsorship is done in two parts. There's the I-130 application, which kicks it off, requesting that the foreign spouse be allowed to come into the U.S. as a green card holder. That's the petition stage. And then if they're already in the U.S., they would do adjustment of status. And we might need to do the waiver at the same time as we file adjustment. Or if they're going to do an immigrant visa appointment and come through the U.S. consulate in Montreal, then we would file that when we're getting everything together to send documents to the National Visa Center and go through the process of getting the immigrant visa in Montreal. If you wait to do the 601 waiver until you have gotten your appointment in Montreal, good luck, because you're probably not going to get your waiver in the 1 year that you have between showing up for your visa appointment and them closing the case.
Interesting. Chances of success for a Canadian who with a criminal record who wants to go down and be with a spouse in the United States.
Well, it depends. I mean, it's possible. We do it all the time, but it has to be bona fide, and we have to make a really good showing. That extreme hardship to a U.S. citizen standard is a tough one.
Right. And I left this one for last because after all the digits that you've named and the numbers and the subsections and all the different forms that you can fill out, people ask a lot, can I do it myself? And I'm like, well, you theoretically can build an airplane by yourself, but it's difficult and it might crash. So with something like this, especially when you take the criminal record stuff into account, what say you?
I wouldn't. I will tell people, hey, you can do this yourself if it's something straightforward. But this is complex. This is understanding the interplay of multiple criminal systems, how that's going to create an admissibility in the immigration system, how to get around it, what the standards are. This is something that I really would not suggest that somebody tries to handle on their own. I mean, it's the love of your life, or at least the person you're marrying. Then
Such a cynic. Anyway, okay.
Well, you know me, Sean. I am cynical, but no, I mean, this is something that you shouldn't cheap out on.
Okay, Michael O'Rourke, thank you very much for this. Spousal sponsorship to Canada or the USA with a criminal record. If you have any questions about that, Michael is the person to talk to. You can reach him, MO'Rourke@pacelawfirm.com. Thanks, Michael. We'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, Sean. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.